And welcome to a new episode of the Dynasty Mind. My name is Chris Chung at FF Dynasty 101 on YouTube and on the Twitterverse. This is episode presented to you by Fake Pigskin Football. Welcome back. It's an exciting time. If this is your first episode, feel free to check out the past episodes. I believe the information I provided will be helpful to you if you are new to the Dynasty world, or if you're looking to just challenge the way you've been playing Dynasty and hoping to perhaps look into Dynasty with a different mindset, different fresh mind. These episodes, these series are meant to challenge you in your thinking process, meant for you to clarify what it means to be a Dynasty owner and how you can really adopt a mindset that sets you apart from your league mates. For today's episode, we just came from the preseason, the first week of preseason of exciting football. It's been a long time. I know many of you are really excited about watching football again. And so this episode will be partly dedicated to that, as well as dedicated to thinking about your league specifically and what are some of the ways you can change your approach, or maybe if you're already adopting such approach that you can expand on it and make it better. I'll begin with the latter one then, because we're talking about knowing your league mates in a Dynasty league. For most of the Dynasty leagues, if you are heavily involved in one, that is friends or even with strangers who you've been with throughout the years and just develop this league mateship, perhaps not as alien as a acquaintance, but not as well acquainted as a friendship. So I'll call them league mateship. League mates are important, and getting to know them is even more important than understanding the league settings, understanding the league roster requirements. Why? Because within your Dynasty league is a microcosm, and all the values of each player, draft picks, positional players, the positions, are dictated mostly by the group of owners you're with, whether it's 12 owners, whether it's 16 owners, whether it's 32 owners. Each have their own idea of how they can win a league. And of course, Dynasty being such a growing industry, there's a lot of strategies out there, a lot of ways you can attack a Dynasty, but the ultimate goal is to win every year, multiple years, building a team that is strong, that is fun. For myself, I balance between winning, but also being able to own the players that I like, and being able to just get into that feel of what it is to be the fantasy general manager or fantasy scout, fantasy coach, whatnot. But this topic is brought up and pertinent by Adam Harstead. You can find him on the Twitter verse, Adam at Adam Adam Harstead, Harstad. Adam is one of my favorite follows because he is someone who blends in philosophy with Dynasty, and a lot of times these things do marry well together. It is understanding the human mind and understanding the human decision making, and kind of using that to make your league fun, make yourself able to just challenge them, trade with them, push each other to become better, or even exploit their weaknesses if you can take the time to getting to know your league mates. And one of the things that would be helpful in that process, if you haven't done so, is to start a group chat, whether it's Voxer, GroupMe, whatever it is. If you can start a group chat, get involved, have people occasionally check in and kind of talk about things more than just fantasy, or talk about football, what their thoughts are, and getting the sense to know them. Now, I don't want you to sympathize with them because you're trying to beat them, but if you can empathize with them, it will be a great advantage for you to know whether they are what their tendencies are. Leo Pasiga on Twitter also talks about having a notebook. All this is important because all the strategies, all the tools, all the advanced statistics you're getting online, those are as useful as how it can be applied to your league. And your league mates kind of dictate a lot of the values that goes on, and their habits of trading or transactioning. And those are important to be able to use those tools to the fullest, because just relying on ADPs, relying on the some of the rankings, relying solely on advice by analysts can only get you so far, because again, they don't know who is in your league, who makes more mistakes, who reacts differently to news, who are the panickers, who are the Mr. Cools, who are the ones who blend in strategies very well. At times, you might want to kind of figure out who is the one that's making the big splash trades in your league, who are the ones that are okay maybe with just the small trades, who are the ones that are the waiver wire hounds that drop their fob right as news come out about injury that happens or that this player looks great. The waiver wire hound works specifically well for someone who is just bringing in on taking the what we call the trash from the waiver wire and turning that into treasure, because he knows which of his league mates will have itchy fingers, will want the shiny new toys, or will want the player who is getting the positive buzz. And of course, there's also the all-knower. And I'm not talking about the one who is all-knowing, but actually says no to everything. No to proposals, no to offers, no to waiver wires, and just, well, I haven't found anyone that says no to waiver wires, but no to just being approached for trading. And you can only do so much with this person, even though they may have your favorite player. But you just know that you have to put an effort into just being able to trade with each and every one of your league mates who you can look to for future trading. But one of the things that I think is most likely to happen in most leagues is all owners have this thing, what I call a ownership tax. What that entails is when a owner has a certain player that you're trying to trade for, you must expect, or not you must, but you're likely to expect a value hike, a value tax that's added onto whatever the market value is of the owner. Now, if you can figure out what the owner tax is of that owner, you are able to calculate for yourself whether it's worthy to pursue a trade, worthy to just walk away. I've seen this a lot of times. I myself has applied it. When I own a player I am extremely high on, or even a player that I'm not really think will be special, but just for the mere fact that I own him, I might bump his value up 5% or 10%, challenging the party that is interested in, are you willing to pay a little bit above the value, the market value, what the Twitter kind of dictate what the value is. But there is no other way to get that player unless you get through this quote-unquote subjective owner's tax. So that's kind of an example of why you need to get to know your league mates and kind of figure out count your costs in the trade. So that's it for topic 1. Now we're heading into topic 2, which ties well into the first topic. But let me just start off by saying the preseason one football has generated a massive sweep of value changes, and also some massive overreactions, but also some underreactions. And I'd like to talk about that a little. Now, the idea of confirmation biases, and Market inefficiencies are not new topics. I'm not bringing you something new. The What I am bringing is that even despite understanding these how biases and what I would like to call emotional inefficiencies can really hurt your team, people seem to forget about these lessons, seem to forget about these concepts as when the season is here. And just from a little bit of the preseason, we already see a lot of that happening, and you would want to watch out that you yourself don't fall victim to biases or to your inefficient emotions. Um, the preseason brings a lot of highs and lows. It's the first time we actually get to see some professional NFL football going on in the field between two teams. This is no longer training camp. We're no longer talking about OTAs. We're no longer talking about 50% game speed. Now, preseason does not entail the intricacies of a regular season, but it is a good way to kind of get a sense of football again. And being deprived of football for 8 long months of real football, it is most likely that people will tend to overreact or underreact, fall victim to biases. For me, I want to how preseason. This is how I think that preseason should be used. But if you disagree, if you found more advantages in watching preseason, please share. But the things that I like to see in a preseason are how players come back from injury. Will Jordan Reed actually play any game? I doubt it, but let's say another guys such as AJ Green, he looked great in his first preseason game coming back from a season-ending injury last year, and I'm more confident that his stock stays, his value stays as part of that wide receiver one group. I want to look into rookies, specifically quarterback rookies. How is the game for them? It's no longer those Saturday night run and gun or playing backyard football. No, they have to be able to adapt and think on their feet now that the bullets are flying. Again, they may not be facing complex defenses. They may not be even playing 100% game speed. But for me, knowing that they stood poised, they're controlled, it really helps me build confidence in knowing that, hey, later on down the road, these players might turn into something, or I'm not going to overpay for the player, but I would be willing to later on maybe need to pay for this player. So those are kind of things that I would like to file away. That's how I used preseason. But as we know, this past preseason, there were remarkably a lot of players that were showing up amazingly. I would like to mention Kenny Golladay. He was amazing with his 2 touchdowns. Notably, he didn't catch those from Matthew Stafford. So that's just why I am less willing to jump all into the Golladay train. But the important thing is that you have a process of how to take on preseason games. Preseason games can be a lot of fun, but it can really drive the person's emotions and biases, the recency biases it brings on, and makes people want to jump on, having the issue of fear of missing out, kind of this tendency of being scared that if I don't buy into the player now, this is their all-time low. Instead, that actually maybe you're trying to buy them at the all-time high. So be on guard for all the biases that you have. Don't get too excited about a preseason game, and watch for if there's positive movement, if there's positive trend that translate into the regular season. My process has been looking into preseason. I've identified players who have been doing well, extremely well during the preseason, but it does not show up in the regular season. I can name guys like Joe Webb, Demir Bird, Anthony Jones. Those are great preseason players who will put up the stats, and but they will not be counted on in the regular season. For others, it's less predictable because they may be their first preseason game, or maybe they're relatively unknown. So there's a danger in box score scouting. Avoid that at all costs. I would say the stats really doesn't matter for Dynasty in preseason, and probably not for regular season. It matters for daily fantasy if that's what you're into, and that's fantastic because I've been able to benefit from that. The other thing is, how are the rookie success rate? Does it translate? In my experience, very few of the successes that are gained in the preseason games translate over to the regular season. I'm rather looking for traits, not the way they put up stats, or rather how they put up the stats. And lastly, how does the preseason success correlate with regular season success? You'll find out that it's usually low. And if you have a different experience, maybe you are much better than me of how to use the preseason. But in my opinion, if you're unsure, if this is your first rodeo, take the conservative and cautious approach is way better than jumping both feet in. And just don't be afraid. Even if you miss out, there is a chance to buy the players back. There's always a chance to buy a player back. There's no such thing as a one shot if you miss it and that it's passed by you now. But again, this ties into your league mates and how they value preseason. I've seen people throw their first rounders and second rounders, future picks for Kenny Golladay already, and this is definitely an overreaction for me. Can Kenny Golladay become a great player, or maybe a strong contributor later on? Yes, I do believe he has that potential, but you cannot presume that the first week of preseason will be an indicator of that. And speaking of Kenny Golladay, what's funny to me, and you may have seen me tweet this out, is that Kenny Golladay was relatively unknown before the draft process. Everyone was into the John Ross. Everyone was more into Bucky Hodges even, or guys like Chad Williams and Chad Hansen, Jeremy McNichols. But only a few people who I really trust because they play college football, or they were involved with the Devy world for a long time. Even themselves were a bit shocked how high Golladay was drafted. They do think he has talent, but they don't believe that he is that immediate of a contributor right now. Now, after the draft, everyone is shocked. Nobody has bought in Golladay yet. But there were more optimism because of his draft pedigree, which is one of the factors that people take into account when deciding which rookie they want. Okay, so relatively quiet. After preseason 1, remember, this is the time when everyone gets to watch a game on a Sunday, and it's the only game that's going on right now. So a lot of people are paying attention to this game, and Golladay goes out and catches not one but 2 touchdowns. Suddenly, there are truthers coming out left and right telling me, oh, I've been on the Golladay train since before the draft, or I've always known that Golladay will be good. And this is ridiculous because nobody was touting that before the draft, okay? Maybe you did it in private, fine, but you never did it in public, and don't come out to me right now and telling me, oh, I've been on the Golladay train for forever. No. Take a conservative approach. Be wary of these so-called analysts. Be wary of these people who have very much a recency bias to pound their chest. Continue to monitor. I do think Kenny Golladay can be a good. I'm putting him at a a wide receiver that has a wide receiver 2 upside for now. For now, a lot of things does point positively for him, but I'm not overpaying for what could happen now, but rather I want to pay for what he can show me in 2017 and hope he can develop further on. All right, so that's for this week's or this episode of the Dynasty Mind. For my 2 recommended follows, I would like for you guys to follow at In This League Pod. That's at In This League Pod. The ITL Army, they are a fantastic group that has done a lot of work in the fantasy world, but more likely one less well known, or at least on my Twitter feed, is the college football. These guys are sharp. These guys are fantastic in bringing the knowledge of college football, and they can even tell you, because of their years in college football, they are well versed in who can translate to the next level. They have a better sense of who is more of a college star rather than someone who is going to be an NFL star. Then maybe you can even find nuggets of who might be declaring early or who might benefit from an additional year in college football. So go follow these guys. They have a podcast as well. Hit them up at Botman, Mr. CFF, and Blaze. The other follow I would like to recommend is at Shane P. Hallam. Shane P. Hallam is an OG of the Twitterverse. He was Dynasty. He was giving Dynasty advice before even the big Dynasty industry even existed. You didn't have your DLF back then, or you didn't. This was before DTC. This was before DFF. Whatever that's on there, Shane was there before all of these guys and giving great advice. He's slowly moving back into the Twitter world. I know he disappeared for a while. He's this thing called real life job and getting married got in the way. But hit him up. He is fantastic follow for anyone who is curious about the draft process and curious about Dynasty rookies. All right. You have a good day, and please enjoy the rest of your preseason game.